He stopped suddenly, the fire bouncing over the planes of his face. Something so sad it hurt to look in his eyes. And then the rain started again. He couldn't continue, couldn't walk us into the darker parts of story. Not now. Enough for not tonight. Then we packed up what lay about while the fires still burned, carrying the tarp we used as a dining room table over to the tent. I heard her call. French. I sighed and dropped my shoulders, still smiling. Yeah, Ree. Can't sleep. This was fast becoming the routine. I heard story. She did not. So she would ask me to tell her stories, innocently enough, but desperate for some understanding. The understanding that was withheld from her youth so that she could form into a real human. Before she understood that some saw her a little more than a crop. Be there in a minute, Kay. I pegged the tarp between Riri's and Minerva's tent so that they'd have a little covered walkway should they have to use the washroom during the rainy night. I carried over the clean latrine bucket and a smaller bucket half filled with water for washing up. Then I took my boots off at the door and joined Riri in her tent. Until last month, she'd shared a tent with Minerva, but she was getting older and had demanded some space, which was granted. We encouraged independence in our family. We never knew when anyone would be on their own, even at 7. The tent was small, and the firelight from outside made everything the same red as the vinyl walls. She had made a nest of her blankets in the middle on top of her blue ground tarp, away from the walls that could hold condensation and spread dampness in a good enough downpour. I lay down beside her on top of the blankets. Her pillow was like all of ours, a case stuffed with folded clothes. There was no room for extras in the camp. Everything did double duty. Before I'd even laid my head down, she was after story. Tell me what happened. French, please. Riri, you know I can't tell you. But why? Why can't I know? She lifted herself up on an elbow, pleading. It's no fair. I get sent away all the time. I rolled over onto my back, reaching up to tap the raggedy dreamcatcher I'd bent out of branches and filled with vines for her so that it swung on its string. It's for your own good. She squinted at me in the red gloom. That's a load of bull. I deserve to know my own history. It was getting more difficult to reason with her, especially when she made sense. Riri had been just a baby when I'd joined the camp, newly walking and bucket trained. For some reason, she quickly grew attached to me. Meg thought I must have reminded her of someone from her original family. Whatever the reason, I often had a chubby shadow throughout my day. Now that she was a real kid with her own duties and her own mind, it was becoming increasingly harder to relegate her to the shadows and to ignore her requests for information or background to her difficult life. Re Slopper was allowed to hear story when he was younger. I began. What? That's no fair. She was up on her knees in a flash. How come he got to hear? Relax, relax. I pushed her shoulder, trying to get her to lie down. Listen to me, please. I stopped talking until she grudgingly laid back on her side, facing me. Slopper was allowed to hear story a couple years ago. When he was your age, he didn't even hear it all, and it didn't turn out so well. But I'm not Sloper. French, she had sprung back up. I can handle it. I'm mature for my age. I laughed at this. I know that's true. Re, you're practically a grown ass lady. She pursed her lips, checking my face for more mockery. When she found none, she gave me a stiff. Thank you. But it's about timing. Meg will let you know the whole story when it's time. Sloper was pretty messed up for months after. He stopped playing, didn't want to learn anything, and even stopped sleeping so good. She was finally quiet. I watched the dream catcher spin to a stop. I remembered following Mitch around, bugging him for any details he might know as we tromped after my parents to the bay. I thought about the parts Meg had left out tonight. The parts that kept us running. Even still, it was unfair to keep everything from Re. It had driven me to distraction to not know, made it harder to keep moving day after day without understanding what was on our heels. Maybe, yeah, I think maybe I can share some things, though. Her eyes grew big, but she held back her words. Years ago, other people, not us, they kinda got sick. Really, the whole world itself got sick. I tiptoed around the harsher images that came to mind. Like, it never used to rain all the time. And there were way more people. After the rain started and the lands shifted so that some cities fell right into the oceans, people had to move around. Diseases spread like crazy. With all this sickness and movement and death, people got sad. One of the ways the sadness came out was when they slept. They stopped being able to dream. At first, they just talked about it all casual, like, oh, funniest thing, I haven't dreamed in months. Isn't that odd? I haven't dreamed either. Here I pitched my voice high and wiggled my shoulder to imitate a mincing kind of movement, like how I imagined white ladies did as they pushed metal carts down long straight aisles to gather food from boxes lined up on shelves, all of it already dead. Ree smiled at this impression. They visited their head doctors, psychiatrists, and they took pills to help them sleep when they stopped having the will to lie down at night. Soon they turned on each other, and the world changed again. A low whistle with a fluttering and sounded outside. The alarm! I jumped up. Where are you going? Riri sounded frantic. She just started to hear the story, and now I was leaving. You got. Gotta go. Something is coming. I dashed out of the tent, stepping into my boots with the laces still undone.